Hello peeps, guess what? It's another time for tea and a chat. Hello YouTubers, it's the Mad Mechanic here. Spark plugs. Why are they so important? And how can you read them to find out how your engine is? I'll tell you what, let's find out. Now, spark plugs, how to read them for engine performance. I was once told years ago that reading spark plugs is an art and it's not a science, and if you get it wrong you can spend absolute days or even months banging your head on a wall. Now, I'm not going to go into how spark plugs work, but if you're watching this you've got a vague idea what's going on. But if you don't, a spark plug is a tool that the ignition system uses to transfer a high voltage, low amp current to run down an electrode so it can jump across an open gap to ignite the fuel air mixture that is being compressed inside of a cylinder. Now, you can do a very basic method of reading a spark plug by taking the plug out of the cylinder head and looking on a chart to see what colour the ceramic or the upper ceramic should be. If it's usually grey to white, it's probably too lean. Light brown or tan, it should be okay. Black and sooty, it's far too rich. But again, this will only work if the engine is in really good shape, not burning oil, etc. The carb is working okay, and the ignition is set to roughly the right settings for that engine. Now, we're not going to go into the modern petrol or gas engines with a host of electronics that really do the job for us. But it's still a good idea to check to see how the electrics are holding up. But that's really for another time, chipping electronics, etc, etc. But this method is really ideal for the older carb setup types of engines, e.g. 2-strokes or 4-strokes. But this is really going to be mainly for 4-stroke engines. 2-strokes can be the same, but you have other factors that come into play, e.g. extra oil in the fuel, different types of fuel, which can affect the readings and colours. So we're going to deal with 4-stroke water-cooled engines. Again, air-cooled engines can change slightly, but again, it's basically the same, but with a little bit more fine-tuning. Now, there's various parts of the spark plug that can be read. You have the welded, grounded electrode on the top that can read the plug temperature. The bottom of the white ceramic, that's usually to find the high-end fuel ratio at high throttle. The base ring for idle mixture, tip of the electrode for ignition timing, and sometimes people read the top of the threads on the spark plug for the heat rating of the plug. Now then, firstly, you cannot get a good reading of a plug unless you use it on full throttle. And this is just for a few seconds, 10, 15, 20 seconds, and then immediately cut the ignition. If you don't, the reading of the plug will be slightly different because you've come back to idle and you'll be running around chasing plug colours like you just never before. Firstly, I feel the most important reading is the heat range of a plug. On the side of the plug you'll have a set of numbers. Now, most manufacturers have their own way, but mainly it's the same. Lowest number is the hottest, highest number is the coolest. Now, normally they start from 5 to 10, but roughly 6 to 9 is roughly the norm. The temperature of the burning mixture is high enough to melt the parts of the engine, but it fails to do this because the heat is carried away from the combustion chambers through the walls and preventing them from reaching that melt temperature. Now, this can be via the water jacket, or in case of an air-cooled engine, large heat fins over the airflow. Now, a spark plug is a very lonely part of the engine. It sits on top and to the side of the cylinder head, well away from any forms of cooling via the water jacket or airflow, and its temperature can be much higher than the cylinder temperature as itself, so it really does need to cool itself down to stop getting so hot that the electrode tip starts to glow red hot, which also can lead to pre-ignition or run-on when you turn off the engine. So we need to find the heat setting for the application in hand, e.g. a high revving engine that produces a lot of heat will need a much cooler plug than an engine doing low revs and producing lower heat. So how do we find that number? Well, the first thing to do is use a brand new plug and a mid-range heat setting, say around about 7, and run the engine up to normal temperature, full throttle, kill the engine with ignition and remove the plug. Now, there are two ways of checking the plug heat range, and this is my way of doing it. Not everybody's, but this is my way. Look at the ground strap on the plug. You want the small heat band to just be on the 90-degree bend of the strap. Now, if it's towards the end of the strap, the plug is a little bit too cold, or the ignition is a little bit too retarded, so you need to advance the ignition a little bit, or come down a number. If it's too near the base of the plug, it's obviously too hot, so go up a number in the plug and retard the ignition a little bit more. Now, I used to work with an old chap that used to work for Leyland ST, and he used to tell me that they used to use the electrode head to check the ignition timing. So you're looking at a lighter tip colour that should be only about 0.5 mil from the tip. Any more, then retard the ignition, and then use the base of the thread to find out the heat range that you were looking for. Ran about 20 mil back from the base plate. Any more, then the plug was too cold, and too less, it was too hot. Love to hear your comments on that one, but I will try it out one day to see if it works, but that's the way he used to do it, and he said it worked for him. Okay, so we've checked the heat, and that's about right. The heat band is on the 90-degree curve. So how do we check the idle? The easiest way is to have a look at the base plate that's on the bottom of the thread. So you're looking for a light colour all the way round. If it's broken or completely and utterly void of all colour, the mixture could be too lean. If it's sooty black, then the idle is probably far too rich. Don't look at the ceramic, just the base ring. So now what about a full throttle setting? Now this is where it gets a little bit difficult. You may need to try and see down the side of the ceramic to try and get the base plate. The only way really to do this is to actually cut the metal thread off the spark plug, so you end up with just the ceramic. What you're looking for is a dark brown ring at the base of the ceramic, which is roughly around about 2 mil in thickness. Now, if it's less than 2 mil, the mixture is going to be too lean. If it's more than 2 mil, then it's probably going to be too rich. Don't worry about the upper part of the ceramic, it's the bottom part you're after. So, you've now got the plug about right, and the engine is running on song. Also, you have to have a look at your plugs every now and again to find out that there are a few spots of alloy or bits of soot on the ceramic. So what's that showing? It looks like your engine ignition is running out of sync, so it's pre-ignition, pre-detonation, and you end up with parts of the piston ring moving around with like a shock wave inside the cylinder, and it's pushing oil past the piston ring, which is then sticking to the side of the spark plug. So please check your ignition, check your bits and pieces. But if you have done your spark plug reading pretty well, you'll find you probably won't have that. Okay, I wish you all the best, and I really hope this helps you to understand how these things work and what they can tell you. But like I said to you before, these are my views, and I've learnt these over many years. I hope you like this video. If you do, please subscribe, press the like button. We've got loads more of sort of like similar type videos coming up in the future. I wish you all the best in the world, and I'll talk to you later on. See you later on, guys. Bye.